everybody, I am NicoD, so my channel now has got 5,000 subscribers, so thank you all for that, for pushing the button. So to celebrate that, I have got a special for you, so I benchmarked 13 different SBCs with different socks. So all with Armbian Noble, so that is Ubuntu 24.04, the Armbian version of Ubuntu 24.04. So the boards that I've benchmarked are the NanoPi M4, the Kadas Vim 2, Kadas Vim 3, Kadas Vim 4, the Odroid N2+, the Odroid C2, the BananaPi M5, the Mechatronics R57, the Raspberry Pi 5, Raspberry Pi 3B+, the UP 7000 with N100 and Raspberry Pi 400. And as last there is also this. So this is the ROG 5 ITX. So this represents the RK3588. So every board has got a different sock. So for example, this has got the RK3399. This has got the A311D from Amlogic. This has got the S912 from Amlogic, or yes, S912. This has got, so this is the Kadas Vim 4, this has got the A311D2, so an upgraded version of the Kadas Vim 3. The Odroid N2+ has got the S922X. The BananaPi M5 has got the Amlogic S905X3. I don't know from the Raspberry Pis, this has got, so this is the Mechatronics R57, this has got the RK3576, so this is the newest of them all, this is the newest sock. We are working on this, but I already benchmarked the CPU, the GPU I couldn't benchmark yet. So the UP 7000 has got the N100 from Intel, so I can compare x86 with ARM64. It isn't a good comparison. x86 runs better for some software, like for Blender for example. Blender is optimized for x86 and not for ARM. So Blender runs better on this, but other things run worse on this, and this creates a lot of heat, so you need a big fan to cool it. So that is why I love ARM single board computers. I used to use one of these with screws over here, and I put it like that. I didn't need a fan, and that is why I love them, because it doesn't need much electricity, it doesn't consume much heat, so, or it doesn't produce much heat, so it can be run without a fan and it can be silent. So for me that is important, because I've got all my computing in my sleeping room. So if I don't have a silent room when I sleep, then that's not good. So I've done 7-zip benchmarks, I've done multi-core benchmark, I've done single core benchmark, I've done single cluster benchmarks. So we can all compare those. I've done my NicoD Blender benchmark. I've done SuperTux card benchmark for the frames for the GPU. I've tested how much power they use from the PSU, and I also checked the temperatures, if they overheat or not, like they are. So all like they are. If I needed a fan, I will say it. So here we go! So most of these images are downloadable on the Armbian website, except for the Mechatronics R57. That one is in the making. So here we set it to all, so we see all the downloadable images, and let's go down a bit, and here we've got the BananaPi M5. So this is the image that I've used. So I've been testing these images to see where the bugs are, and I've reported all the bugs. So there were quite a few bugs. I will mention them later on. So let's go down a little bit more. Here we have got Intel AMD, so for the N100, the Up7000s. Here we have got the CADAS VIM 2, 3 and 4. And here we have got the NanoPi M4. The Odroid C2, the Odroid N2 Plus. And a bit more down we will have the Raspberry Pi, and that's here, Raspberry Pi 3 and 4 and 5. I think that will be it. Oh, the ROG 5 ITX, of course. So let's go over the specs of each board, and let's start with the Mechatronics R57. So this has got the RK3576, so from Rockchip. So this has got 8 cores, so 4 A53, Cortex A53 at 2.2 GHz and 4 times A72 at 2.3 GHz. So these are clocked very high. These are older architectures, but they still can compete very well with the more modern SOCs. So this is almost as powerful as the RK3588 with the CPU, but the GPU is less powerful. So this one has got 8 GB of memory. It is LPDDR5. So it has got NVMe, and it also has got a mini PCIe for Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. It has got HDMI in, HDMI out, 2 times gigabit Ethernet. It has got these serial connections, 1 time USB 3, 2 times USB 2 and 1 time USB Type C, and audio, and here for a SIM card. And here again, serial connection. So that's the Mechatronics R57. So now the ROG 5 ITX. So here is the ROG 5 ITX. So this is the biggest that I've got by far. So this has got the RK3588, so 8 cores, 4 times A55 at 1.8 GHz. And 4 times A76 at 2.4 GHz. This one has got 8 GB of memory. You can have it with 16 or 32 or with 4. It has got NVMe. It has got mini PCIe. No, not mini PCIe. E-key for M.2 E-key for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It has got 2 times HDMI out, 1 time HDMI in, powered with barrel jack or ATX. So 2 times gigabit, no, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, so that is great. 2 times 2.5, 4 times USB 3. Then the CADAS VIM 4. So this has got the Amlogic A311D2, also 4 core, also 8 cores. So 4 times A53 at 2 GHz and 4 times A73 at 2.2 GHz. So this one comes with 8 GB of LPDDR4X. So it has got gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, HDMI in, 1 USB 3, 1 USB 2 and USB Type C for power. So the NanoPi M4 has got the Rockchip RK3399. So this has got 6 cores, so 2 cores A72 at 1.8 GHz and 4 times A53 at 1.4 GHz. So this used to be the flagship of Rockchip, but now the RK3588 has surpassed it. So I like this a lot. So it has got NVMe, it has got HDMI, it has got audio, it has got gigabit Ethernet, 4 times USB 3, and it has got a PCIe GPIO, so you can use NVMe on this, or you can use a hat for extra USB or extra other things, for SATA for example. So this is a very useful board. I still like it a lot. Then the Odroid N2 Plus, so this has got the Amlogic S922X. It has got 4 times A73 at 2.4 GHz plus 2 times A53 at 2 GHz. So this one comes with 4 GB of LPDDR4, 32 bits. So it has got HDMI, 4 times USB. It doesn't have got that much of expansion. It has got eMMC SD reader, but no NVMe, nothing special. One thing that is great with this, it doesn't overheat, so it has got a great heatsink. So it doesn't overheat at all, you don't need a fan for it. It is pretty powerful, it is more powerful than the RK3399. So this is still a very good board. If you have one, use it, because it's still useful. Just not for NAS, because the USB ports aren't that stable, and it doesn't have got extra expansion. But it is great, certainly for gaming it is still good, and for other things the GPU is pretty powerful. So the NicoD Slim 3 is an older model of the NicoD Slim 4. So this is the KKSB case that I've got from the NicoD Slim 4. So you can buy KKSB cases with my referral link here down in the description, and my coupon code NicoD for 10% off. So this has got the A311D and this has got the A311D2. So the only difference is this one has got 6 cores and this one has got 8 cores. So this has got 4 times A73 at 2.4 GHz and 2 times A53 at 2 GHz, while this has got that 4 times A53 at 2 GHz. So that's the only difference, 2 more cores. Then we have got the Odroid C2. This is the second SBC that I ever bought and I really loved it so much. So this did my video editing in the first trip that I did 7 years ago to Denmark, and I did everything on this. I watched movies, I did my video editing at 720p and it works really well. So I really love this board. So this is the Odroid C2. It has got the Amlogic S905. So this was the first one with that SoC. It has got 4 cores, A53 at 1.5 GHz. It was sold at first at 2 GHz, but it didn't run at 2 GHz. It said it was 2 GHz, but it was bogus. It was 1.5. But you can overclock it to 1.75 GHz, and that was what I was doing. And it doesn't overheat even with this heatsink. So for that, this board was awesome. A board that didn't overheat, that was very powerful back in the day when all other boards were 32 bits. This was a 64 bit, very nice board, but now it is a very old board. So it has got gigabit Ethernet and USB 2 ports, HDMI, and also a micro USB port here. So the Banana Pi M5 has got the Amlogic S905X3, so that is the next generation of the Odroid C2, it's SoC. So this has got also 4 cores, oh no, it has got 4 cores, A55 at 2 GHz. It has got 4 GB of LPDDR4 RAM. So also very simple, it has got USB 3, gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, nothing more. It has got an eMMC, I think, or not. I don't know. I don't know. So the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus has got the BCM2837B0 4x853 at 1.4 gigahertz. So it has got 1 gigabyte of LPDDR2. Really? LPDDR2? I'm not sure of that. Maybe it's LPDDR3. So yeah, also a very simple board. Everybody knows the Raspberry Pi. Nothing more to say about that. Then the Raspberry Pi 400 is over here. So this one has got 4 gigabytes of memory. The SoC is the BCM2711 4x872 at 1.8 gigahertz. Can be overclocked quite a bit. So it is in a keyboard. You have got 2x HDMI, mini HDMI. You have got USB Type-C for power, USB 3 and USB 2, and gigabit Ethernet. One thing I really love about the Raspberry Pi 400 is it doesn't overheat. So a Raspberry Pi that doesn't overheat is a good Raspberry Pi. The next one is the Raspberry Pi 5. That is the Broadcom BCM2712 4x876 at 2.4 gigahertz up to 3 gigahertz. For me it runs at 3 gigahertz. So this one can have NVMe with the PCIe over here, which is cool that Raspberry Pi can have that now too. It is a simple board. It has USB 2 and USB 3, gigabit Ethernet, no eMMC, still a good SD reader. The Kadas Vim 2 has got the Amlogic S912. So this has got 8 cores. This was one of the first 8-core boards. But these 8 cores aren't that great. So it has got 4x853 at 1 gigahertz and 4x853 at 1.4 gigahertz. So it isn't very powerful. But yeah, for Android it is okay. For Linux it wasn't very useful for me. I thought this would replace my Odroid C2, but the Odroid C2 still was more powerful because it has got better single core performance at 1.75 gigahertz versus 1.4 gigahertz on this. Then the last board, the UP 7000, has got the N100 from Intel. It doesn't have got anything special. It has got an eMMC. It has got USB 3.2, so 10 gigabits instead of 5 gigabits. So that is good. HDMI and gigabit Ethernet. So it is a very simple board. Now Raksha also has made an N100 SBC. So it is a nice board, but what it doesn't do well compared to ARM is it consumes a lot and it also creates a lot of heat. So I use a huge, let me show you. So I use this fan to sit it on top so it won't overheat, or else it is an overheating mess. So for that I don't like this board that much. It can't compete with my ARM boards. If you need a fan for it, I don't want a fan in my room. If I can do it without a fan, then I will do it without a fan. So for that my ARM SBCs are better than an Intel SBC. But this one is of course pretty nice to game. So I bring this to LAN parties. Everybody brings their big case with them, and I've got my small SBC with me. And I've got multiple, so I bring SBCs for other people who don't have a computer. So for that, these are very nice, but they aren't the best. So that's all the specs. Now let's go to the benchmarks. Here are the 7-zip all-core results. So the ROG 5 ITX with the RK3588 outperforms them all with 18,600. The Micotronics R57 does come close with 16,000. I have to say the Micotronics R57 has a problem where it uses about 15% of the CPU cores at idle, so maybe it will perform closer to the RK3588 when that has been fixed, or maybe it will even outperform it. The Raspberry Pi 5 at 3 GHz comes close at 15,700, at 2.4 GHz 13,400. The older boards don't come that close, with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus 4,500, the Odroid C2 5,400. The Kadas Vim 4 also performs pretty good, but there is a problem with the Vim 4. It uses a dirty legacy kernel. I want this board to be mainlined, but there isn't that much work being done for the Kadas Vim 4 to be mainlined. I've been waiting for that for a long time. The kernel that is used now doesn't have GPU drivers, it doesn't have VPU drivers, so the board is kind of useless. Only the CPU is useful. But these days we can have a lot better with other boards like RK3588. So that's the 7-zip all-core results. Then the 7-zip single-core results. So here the Raspberry Pi 5 with its 3 GHz overclock shines. Also the UP 7000 shines in this with its cores, because it can turbo to 3.3 GHz. But it can't do that on all cores, so all cores it is 2.9 GHz. That is why it doesn't shine in multi-core, but it does shine in single-core performance. Of course the RK3588 performs pretty well at 2.4 GHz. The Odroid N2 Plus still does pretty good, and the Kadas Vim 3 is about the same as the Odroid N2 Plus. So here we can see how big a gap we have made in a few years. In about 7 years I think that the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus came out, or 6 years ago. We now have a Raspberry Pi 5 that outperforms it multiple times. And that can't be a bad thing, of course. And here are the NicoD Blender benchmark results. So here the UP 7000 does shine, so 2 minutes 56, so nearly 3 minutes. So x86 does this better. Then the ROG 5 ITX with the RK3588 4 minutes 45. The R57 doesn't do it that well, 8 minutes and 11. But I think this will improve in the future, because right now there is a bug where it uses 15% of the CPU in idle. I think because it doesn't have the GPU drivers enabled. But if you compare the ROG 5 ITX with the NanoPi M4 for example, then you see that we've made a huge leap in the previous generation. The Raspberry Pi 5 at its overclock of 3 GHz does do well at 5 minutes and 8 seconds. But it also consumes a lot when you do that. So the Raspberry Pi 5 overclocked consumes 26 watts. Here the Super Tux card results. So this is with Tux playing football with the football fields. So the RK3588 really is very powerful, 69 FPS with pan frost. It can do 110 FPS with the blob driver, so the GPU really is very powerful, a lot more powerful than the one on the UP 7000. That does 62 frames per second, but it is better for gaming because a lot more games are made for x86. With ARM we have to do a conversion, so the Kadas Vim 3 and the Odroid N2 Plus are pretty powerful at 20 frames per second and 19. The Vim 4 doesn't have GPU drivers. Odroid C2 couldn't do it at 1080p. The Micotronics R57 also doesn't have GPU drivers yet. So the Raspberry Pi 5 does it worse than the Odroid N2 Plus. So 16 frames per second at its overclock at 1 GHz GPU. Something that is important for me are the temperatures. So the R57 doesn't overheat, 74 degrees Celsius maximum, 57 with the big heatsink that I've got on my ROG 5 ITX. No fan needed. Kadas Vim 4 with the case from KKSB cases doesn't overheat at 70. The NanoPi M4 does overheat at 85 Celsius. Odroid N2 Plus, as I said, very cool. 72 degrees Celsius maximum. Kadas Film 3 is one that I can't keep cool. I need to replace that thermal pad that's used in it. It has turned bad and you can't cool it even using a fan. The Odroid C2 doesn't overheat, 64 degrees Celsius at 1.5 GHz. So that's an awesome board for that. The Banana Pi M5 did go to 82 degrees Celsius, but no more. Raspberry Pi 3B Plus was an overheating mess. Raspberry Pi 400 does very well. Raspberry Pi 5 does pretty good with the fan. The fan does make a lot of noise when you overheat it and use the CPU a lot, but it is a silent experience otherwise. The Kadas Film 2 also overheating mess, and it isn't throttling at ambient, so be careful, do not use the Kadas Film 2 with ambient when you need to use the CPU at maximum. You will break the board. And the UP 7000 also is an overheating mess if you don't use a big fan for it. And here the power consumption, so I measured it between the PSU and the wall plug. So it is actually the PSU, its consumption that I measure with the consumption of the board. And the PSU of the Raspberry Pi performs very badly. So 26 watts for the Raspberry Pi 5 at 3 GHz. 18 watts at 2.4 GHz. The UP 7000 18.5 watts. But it can go over that if you use other things. The Raspberry Pi 400 and 3B Plus 13.5 and 13.2. The Odroid N2 Plus 14.7. Kadas Film 3 is a lot lower. Why that is, I do not know. Maybe because the Odroid N2 Plus uses DDR and not LPDDR. So that's about all I've got to say about this. Also the issue, so the Kadas Film 3 has all cores clocked to 1.5 GHz at default. You can change that with CPU frag utils or CPU frag sets. RK3399 has an issue where when it goes into sleep, the USB port stops working, so you can't wake it up. Microtronics R57 has high idle CPU usage and no GPU drivers. The Odroid C2 hasn't got USB ports working with the latest image. You can use the earliest image, but do not upgrade or else it will break. And the Kadas Film 2 doesn't throttle. So those are the problems. I all reported them to Armbian. So let's hope this can be fixed soon. So that's gonna be it for my 5000 subscribers special. I put a lot of work into this video. A lot of time in benchmarking. Every board took about 1 day. I've been benchmarking for a month and I'm sick of it. So thank you all for pressing the button, for subscribing. I hope to make more videos, but none like this because this was too much work. Please like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Thank you all for this journey. See you all later. Bye.